weekend, and as usual, if you have any questions or concerns, give me a holler. Otherwise, we got things to talk about, so we'll go ahead and get started. Here we go. So today I'm going to talk about the 11 secrets your stockbroker doesn't want you to know. So let's, and again, we've talked about many of these before, but we'll go through them one by one just as a good reminder on why what we do at 5Q is such an essential need for all the people we meet and help, because we are on a mission to help people, and unfortunately the industry as a whole is on a mission to make money off of people. So these are the things that we are up against and help people with. So first is, I don't want you to know about any of the fees, especially the hidden fees. So what fees are we talking about? Well, according to a study done by Wake Forest University and the University of Florida, the 30 largest mutual funds would have to increase their published expenses by 43% if they included their hidden fees caused by turnover. So that's just turnover. But is turnover the only fee that we have? What other kind of fees that we have besides turnover? So let's see some answers to that. I'm going to go over here. And this is right out of Forbes. So Forbes, you know, we know about expense ratio, right? 12B1s, yeah, I'd agree with that, Robert. And then there's the transactions cost. This is the turnover cost, 1.44%. I've seen as high as over 2%. I've seen as low as 1.2. 1.44 is a good middle-of-the-road cost for turnover. Taxes, absolutely, Mark. And tax costs, you can see Forbes talks about tax costs right there. And then cash drag. Cash drag is by having money in cash, guess what? Then you're not getting the full benefit of the rate of return. You got soft dollar costs. One of the most difficult mutual fund expenses to estimate is called soft dollar cost. This cost comes into play when mutual fund managers are buying and selling stocks within the mutual fund's brokerage account. Frequently, the mutual fund managers may direct the money managed to brokerage companies, providing them with research and or services, even if the brokerage companies are not providing the most efficient brokerage costs. So there are costs upon costs that are not being reported in the prospectus that people don't even know about. Stocks don't necessarily keep you ahead of inflation. I think this will be quite shocking to most of you. So can I ask you a question, guys? What's the number one reason we say that our clients need to be in stocks? Let's get some answers. Why do we want growth? So somebody, Robert, you said for inflation. That's right. Tom, right. So, but growth. Why do we need growth? What's the purpose of growth? To make people rich? Remember, we talked about this before. If somebody retires without enough money, should we allow them to retire? Should they have retired? If somebody retires without enough money, should we allow them to retire? No. So that's the reason we put them into stocks, so that we can grow them, grow enough money so they can finally retire? Are we trying to grow the money to make them rich? No. What's our job? To make sure they have a good, yeah, everybody's got it. Well, except they're still getting some greater returns. Guys, what the hell is getting greater returns going to do for your client? Because if the only thing you do is getting greater returns, that's a huge problem. You don't understand what you're doing. It's inflation. It's to keep them ahead of inflation. It's to keep them what? Make sure they maintain their lifestyle. Is it to make sure they can grow from living in a house that's $300,000 so they can buy a house that's $700,000? Is that our job to do with their investments? Why do people save in their retirement accounts, guys? So they can maintain their lifestyle when they retire. Not to buy a mansion, not to buy a Bugatti. Does that make sense? So here's the thing. This is something I don't think most advisors realize. Stocks don't necessarily keep you ahead of inflation. Have we experienced that in any recent times? The stocks don't keep you ahead of inflation. Jeannie says, yep. Yeah, Robert says, yeah. How about not 2008? Guys, were the people that invested in 2000 to 2010, did they stay ahead of inflation? What was the rate of return of the market from 2000 to 2010? No, it doesn't depend when it's, yes, it depends on it's measured. So, Matt, very good, Matt. Matt's way ahead of the game. He's going to go to my next slide already. It's basically zero. It wasn't 10%. It was not 10% from 2000 to 2010. It was zero, basically. So what did that keep you ahead of inflation from that decade? So did the stock market keep you ahead of inflation during that decade? Not even close. Not even close. But Matt actually beat me to the punch with my next slide. So 2000 to 2010 wasn't the only time. The 17-year period from 1965 to 1982, the value of the dollar dropped significantly. What $100 bought in 1965 would have cost $311 by 1982. And yet $100 invested in the Dow in 1965 would have been worth only $97 by 1982. So what you could buy for $311 in 65 would only buy you $97 if you would have been invested in the market by the end of that time period. That means the market lagged inflation by a full 67%. That's horrible. So that means from 1965 to 2015, that's a 50-year time period. 17 years from 1965 to 82, it lagged inflation, and from 10 years, 2000 to 2010, it lagged inflation, which means what? 27 out of those 50 years, the stock market didn't keep up with inflation. So how many stock brokers or financial advisors actually realize this fact? So over half the time in the last 50 years, the stock market did not keep up with inflation. So we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, thanks to the graph that Tom got us. Why do advisors get all mixed up with this? Why do advisors think that the market is to grow the money and the market is to keep ahead of inflation? Remember that graph we showed about when brokers were born in their formative years? So most brokers have been around during the 1980s and 90s. So guess what? What did they experience? They experienced that 15 years of unbridled growth. So what are they expecting? Continued growth. So, I mean, this should surprise you. So when you sit there and tell your clients that stocks are going to keep you ahead of inflation, dude, that's an out-and-out what? Unless you say over the last, unless you say over the last 50 years, stock market kept you ahead of inflation less than half the time, you're yanking their chain. Do you get that? So these are things that if we're offering people stocks, am I saying not to buy stocks? No, but I'm saying you need to be honest with your clients. Okay? This is about being honest with your clients. Average rate of return is a big fat lie. Well, we know that, right? Because we talk about that in our outside the box events. Don't need to go any further into that. If you stay in the stock market for the long haul, you'll be okay. Here's my mentality on why I think that's a big fat lie. Because if we really believed if you stayed in the stock market for the long haul, you'd be okay, I think Wall Street and brokers and everybody else would be operating a lot differently. So let me pose a question to you. When brokers or financial advisors tell people to stay in the market for the long haul, give me a definition of the long haul. What would you say their definition of the long haul is? And I got it, 10 years. Yep, that's what I'd say, is 10 years. So I'm going to use, and I got a bunch of 10s. Okay, so here's my posed question for that. If we believe that staying in the stock market for the long haul or 10 years would be okay, then here's what I would ask. If this were really the case and the brokerage houses really believe that, they could easily double their profits. If they absolutely 100% believe that, they could easily double their profits. Here's why. They presently make about 1% per year on expense charges. Can we agree on that number just for ease of explanation? So they presently make about 1% per year on expense charges. How many of their clients would want a guaranteed 8% rate of return for the next 10 years? If you were offered an 8% for the next 10 years, guaranteed, would you take it? I mean, I agree, all of them would. All of them would want that. All of them would want that. So here's how these brokerage houses or advisors could double their profits then. We could go ahead and guarantee the people 8%. So why don't the brokerage houses come out with a product guaranteeing the client 8%? See, if they know that over the next 10 years the market's going to average 10% a year, they can make 2% versus 1% out of all their investments. Now, if you don't agree with these numbers, we can move them anywhere you want. So if we think the market's going to be at 8% a year for the next 10 years, how many people would be okay with getting a 6% rate of return guaranteed for the next 10 years? Because, guys, what's a 10-year Treasury and 10-year CDs paying right now? 1.5%, 2%. So you can move these numbers anywhere you want. But my question is, why, if they are so sure that over the next 10 years the market's going to be the place to be, why don't they give the clients a guaranteed rate of return? Whatever they think the long haul is. If they think that over the next 10 years the market's going to average 10%, then offer people an 8. If they think over the next 10 years the market's going to be at 8%, then why not average give them a 6? Why don't they do that, guys? Why don't they do that? Volatility, that's not the right answer. That's right, Michael. Are they all that sure? Why should they? Guys, why should? That's a silly question. If this was the case, guys, if somebody came out there right now and offered an 8% rate of return for the next 10 years, how much, where would everybody put their freaking money? Yeah, with them, how big would that company be? So why would they do it? They do it because they could get as much money as they possibly wanted. Everybody and their brother would be pumping money into there. All the state pension funds would be putting their money. Everybody would be putting their money. That's why they'd want to do it. So why don't they do it? So why don't they do it? Because they can't guarantee the market's going to be like that for the next 10 years. So that how can they look clients in the eye and tell them that this is going to be a great thing to do if they won't do it themselves? They don't believe it themselves. See, the client is happy because they get 8% in return. The client's happy because they doubled their fees. So why don't they offer it? It's because they have no clue what the market's going to do over the next 10 years. So if they don't know, then they shouldn't imply that they do by making promise of returns in the future. Because what do they keep telling people? Stay in for the long time, you're going to be okay. Need to be in the market, you're going to be ahead of inflation. Both of those are big fat what? Another, my guy is not the best. Because we all say what? My guy's the best. My guy's got to figure it out. How do we know that my guy, your guy, or anybody's guy is not the best? How do we know that? Mutual fund, money manager, whatever. How do we know that for a fact that your guy, my guy, and nobody's guy is the best? How many, well, no guarantees, I agree with that. Yeah, that's right, Fern. Everybody would be with them. That's the reason we know. Instead, at the end of every year, for the last 5 years, at the end of every bull market year, every bull year, how many mutual funds and how many money managers are there? At the end of every bull year, how many mutual fund managers and how many money managers are there? More. There's more. So if somebody had it figured out, would there be more and more advisors, or would there be less and less advisors if more people figured out that person who figured it out? There'd be less and less. There'd only be one because everybody with his firm said everybody would be invested with them. So here's the thing. If somebody also, let's think about this. If somebody had it figured out, would they really be taking your clients $500,000? Would they be taking your clients $100,000? If they had it figured out, what would be their minimum investment size? What would be their minimum investment size? It'd be millions. Yeah, it'd be billions. So the reason we know my guy hasn't figured it out is because there is no best money manager because everybody would be with him. And if we certainly, you and I, would not have access to that guy if he was out there. Because he'd be working with guys with ungodly amounts of money. Number 6, bonds are the only security where the broker does not need to declare his commission. So guess what the most profitable thing for a broker to sell is? I'll tell you, I sold them at the bank. Bonds are they are way more profitable than mutual funds, way more profitable than anything else you can sell. Bonds are the most profitable thing to sell. Past performance is no guarantee of future performance. This just bugs the heck out of me. Because what do they put on the bottom of every mountain chart where it shows the performance of the fund? What do they show say on the bottom of every mountain chart where they show how well that fund's done over the last 10, 20, 30 years? That past performance is no indication of the future. If that's the case, why are they showing a mountain chart? If they truly believe that, should they be allowed to show the mountain chart? If they truly believe past performance is no indication of future performance, should they be allowed to show the mountain chart? And how big is the mountain chart? Now, here's the funny thing, guys. Those of you with BDs, this is what's hilarious. Those of you with BDs, when you do a presentation, they make you have your disclosure how big compared to what you're saying on the slide. They make it big. The disclosure is big. You know what? They have on one slide you say something, and the next slide you got this huge disclosure there. Huge disclosure. But yet they're out there okaying these brochures that have huge mountain charts, and how big is the disclosure that past performance is not indicative of future performance? It's tiny, tiny, tiny. Yeah, for instance, prospects' minds disregard the disclaimer because they want the historical performance, but it's also they disregard it because why? How big is that statement about past performance as compared to the mountain chart? It's kind of hard for them to not to regard it when it's tiny as compared to big. I mean, if I'm looking at a mountain and a molehill, what's going to dominate my thoughts, the mountain or the molehill? The mountain is, exactly. And I'm getting some guys that are I got people now typing in that it's the client's fault, that they think it's going to grow. No, it's not the client's fault. If our industry truly believes that past performance has nothing to do with future performance, then our industry shouldn't have a huge mountain chart and a tiny little disclaimer. It should be what? How do we present, guys? We show up big things, and when we present our product, what do? Do we spend all our time on the positives or the negatives? Our whole presentation is spent talking about the what? Negatives. How many other people in this industry do that? And I'm sorry if you don't believe me or not, we are the only advisors in this industry doing the right thing for our clients. The only. And I've been looking at advisors for 15 years. I've talked to probably 2,000-3,000 advisors, and I've yet to find an advisor that was doing the right thing for the client that wasn't on this system. I'm sorry, you might think I'm full of BS, but we are, because the way we present is what? We disclose everything. How many other advisors out there disclose everything? I've been looking. And Jeff, are you online?
Yeah. Yep, I'm here.
So you help people with 21s all the time. How many other out of the 50,000 meetings we had, and we could recording 4 years ago? How many other advisors out there disclosing everything?
Yeah, I haven't seen any.
Any, zero, zippo. So guys, you are the real deal. You are the knights in shining armor in this industry. I hope you know that. There's a reason I mistitled your accounts. We talked about that, right, in the 21. POD versus TOD. Actively managed accounts do not beat the index regularly enough to validate paying fees. Simply put, you wouldn't pay a fee to be in first class every flight if sometimes you got to be in first class, but most times you didn't. Would any of us buy a first class ticket like that? Where it was a lottery. Most times we go ahead and pay first class rates, but sometimes we're in, sometimes we're not. I would prefer that you didn't know about the preferred list. And we all know the biggest, I won't mention them out loud, but we all know the biggest BD offender of this. They get paid for what? They get kickbacks from the mutual funds to basically push one fund. So it says, I know you hired me to find the absolute best solution to your problems, just that my company only wants me to look at solutions that make them the most money. So there's BDs out there that have agreements with mutual funds or money managers. They get kickbacks from them, and that's why they're pushing. Yeah, that one, and there's another one too out there that's a huge offender of this. They only sell every time you run across somebody with that BD. They have one type of. That's right, Jeannie got it. They sell one family of mutual fund, and that's the only family of mutual fund that they sell. Number 11. Yeah, now we're getting a lot of people that have that. Picked out that BD. Number 11, the last one, they can't make you happy. See, they can only make you sad. Money doesn't make you happy as long as you have enough to live comfortably. Connections make you happy. Getting a 30% rate of return makes you excited, but cannot make you happy. However, lack of money or losing money can make you unhappy. So I've talked about this before. We have the worst jobs in the world. We can never make somebody happy. Guys, when you get somebody a 15% rate of return, what do they say? When you get somebody a 15% rate of return, is that all? Right, Chris? Is that all? Why didn't you give me 30, Kevin? Exactly. We can't make them happy, but we can make them what? Unhappy. See, what makes clients happy? What makes clients happy? Well, they've done studies on this. They've done studies on what makes people happy. Now, let's see if you can guess these. What makes men happy? What's the number one thing that makes men happy? Beer? No. Yeah, a lot of guys got it. Sex. Number one thing, 4 out of 10 men say sex makes them happy. What's the second thing? Victory of their favorite sports team, 3 out of 10. So 1 out of 10, or 4 out of 10 say sex, and 3 out of 10 say victory of their favorite sports team. Yeah, sports genie. Now, what makes women happy? This is kind of a sad indictment on our society, but what makes women happy? Yeah, I wish. Oh, nobody's got it. I'm surprised. Being with family, I got some now. Yep, friends, family. So some of you, being with family, 7 out of 10. The number 2, that's I think is a wonderful thing, being with family. But number 2 is what's a sad indictment on our society, which is losing weight. Makes 2 out of 10 women happy. Just sad. What is missing from these lists? What's missing from both those lists? And here's the sad thing. The thing that's missing from both these lists are things that many of you advisors were saying. Money. It's not on here. It's not on here. So those advisors that were put down money for what makes men or women happy, put down money, see, that's the problem with our industry. We think money will make people happy. It does not make them happy. Money does not make people happy. They've done studies on this. See, we have the worst jobs in the world. We can't make our clients happy. We can only make them sad. We can only make them sad. So, are all people with this will put it to the test. Are all people with money happy? Those of you, and Michelle, you actually work with people down in Haiti. How many people smile down there? They're the poorest of the poor in the world. And how many of those people smile? Huge smiles, are happy. If you look at some of the happiest people in the world, guess what? They don't have any money. Do all happy people have money? They do not. Do all have? No, they don't. In fact, here's what they found. There is one way that money does bring permanent happiness. If it brings you out of poverty. It's hard to be happy when you're worried about feeding your children, about health care, etc. But it's after you've reached a point where you're no longer impoverished, guess what they found about money? There's a little difference reported between people making $36,000 a year and $145,000 a year. Very little. Yeah, and Michelle puts out, yeah, the people with money, more people with money are depressed and have family problems. So is your client's goal in retirement to enjoy family? Is it to enjoy traveling, enjoy friends, explore faith, leave a positive mark on the earth before you leave, enjoy life? What is, I mean, are these the things that people want in retirement? What did I miss, guys? Anything that I missed here? Oh, I'd agree with security, yeah. But I mean, security's kind of shooting isn't that kind of a low bar that you're shooting for? I mean, health and security, I would agree with both of those. But that's kind of a low bar to shoot for. What are they're not retiring so they can be healthy. They want security and healthy so they can do what? Enjoy family, travel. I mean, what are they doing to be to have fun, to feel fulfilled? It's these things here. What's missing from this list? Is their goal? You know, and I have had a very, very few clients whose goal this was to be. And what kind of client were they? It was usually a single man. And why was he single? That's right, Lyle. I won't say the word you used, but that's exactly what he is. That's right, Todd. He's selfish. He's a jerk, exactly. So very rarely I find somebody whose goal is to be wealthy, but man, they are total jerk. But not many of those. So most people want to be this. They don't want to be this, do they? I mean, is their goal in retirement to become wealthy? No. See, is it money that makes them happy, or is it the financial security it brings that allows them to be happy? So money doesn't make them happy, but as we talked about, it's kind of hard to be happy when you're stressed out about money. But once you have enough money, guess what? Then their goal is not to get more money. Their goal is to do those other things. Their goal is to do those other things. See, connections make it. What they found is people who are connected are the happiest. People that have the most friends. People that have the most connection to something that invigorates them, that excites them. Connection to a church. Connected to a synagogue. Connections to a group. Connections to a cause. Connections to people. Connections to family. Connections make people happy, not money. But lack of money can make you unhappy. Stress, worry, loss of sleep, getting a job, God forbid. See, it's not so much the money, it's what money does for us. So should your clients allow their money to run their retirement? What do I mean by their money to run their retirement? I mean this. If their money runs retirement, if they're going crazy in the market, they want to be 100% in the market, guess what? Some years they'll be able to do a lot, and some years they what? Some years they'll be able to do a lot, and some years they won't, because the market will be crushed. I mean, I have seen what the 2010 did to a lot of retirees. And maybe you didn't, but I saw a lot of retirees in 2010 that their retirement was, that 10 years was a very difficult 10 years for them. And think about that. Between age 65 and 75, how much different are you at age 65 than you are at 75? Health-wise, ability to go out and do things-wise, ability to enjoy your family-wise. I mean, that's what? A little difference or big? Those 10 years are a little or big chunk of your life. I mean, between 20 and 30, not big. 30 and 40, not big. 40 and 50, not big. Between 65 and 75, that is a huge difference in life, isn't it? How are your knees doing? How's your ability to exercise doing? How's your ability to walk and hike doing? How's your ability to get on and off and haul suitcases doing? How's your ability to pick up your grandkids doing between 65 and 75? Is it the same, or has it changed quite a bit? I mean, there's virtually no difference between 30 and 40, 40, 50, 50, 60, but between those, it becomes a lot harder. Or should your retirement run your money? So what I mean by this is know what they want out of their retirement. Then make sure their money is doing that for them. Your client's goals aren't to be rich. Your client's goal is to be able to live the lifestyle they're living now. So what do they really want? The highest return with the least amount of risk, or a return that gives them what they want without the risk of losing what they already have? See, are they willing to risk losing everything for the chance to win something twice as big? I mean, if you went to your clients and said, listen, I'm going to flip a coin. I got this wealthy guy, and here's what he's going to be willing to do. We'll flip a coin, and here's what he's going to be willing to do. If you call it right, he'll buy you a house that's twice as big. If you lose, he takes your house away. How many people are going to take that bet? How many people are going to take that bet? I agree. Everybody's saying none. Well, then we have to understand, when we're in charge of people's finances, can they go back to work? Or is what they have what they have? If we muck it up, if we screw up their finances, guess what? Do they have any way to start over again? They don't. They don't. We need to really be focused on that. See, getting the most return is not the most important thing. Risk matters. But we can't, I know, we can't just worry about safety. I mean, return keeps us ahead of inflation, but I've said this over and over and over again. Why? When people retire, what is our job with their money? Is it to get the highest return possible, or is it to stay ahead of inflation? If it's to stay ahead of inflation, then if it's to stay ahead of inflation, then what rate of return do we need to get our clients combined? If it's to stay ahead of inflation, what rate of return do our clients need to get? 2 to 3%, that's it. 3 to 4, that's great. 5 is huge. So if we put half their money in a guaranteed FIA and half their money in the market, guess what they're going to get over time? You're going to be just fine. Oh, no, that's yeah. Return will keep us have inflation. What? All the time or sometimes? Again, that fact about the last 50 years, 27 of those years, the market did not keep us ahead of inflation. 27 of the last 50 years, the market did not keep us ahead of inflation. That is crazy. Like I said, I don't think any other advisors out there besides you right now even know that. So problems with any market investment is volatility. Is it going to be there when you need it? Stocks are right 80% of the time. I will agree with that. Stocks are right 80%. Yeah, I agree with you, Tom, totally. Stocks are right 80% of the time, but they're wrong 20% of the time. Now, this is the Nikkei. And do you recall, some of you that are younger might not recall this, but those of you that are in your 50s or older, do you recall how afraid we were of Japan in the 70s? When you went to Disney World, who was walking around? Who was half the people at Disney World? See, Japan was the China of the 70s. We thought Japan was going to take over the world. They had a big, their economy was nearly as big as ours. They all, the Disney World and all of that, they all were over here buying up all of our real estate. They were all over the tour. Does anybody? I'm seeing no comments on this. Nobody remembers that. That Japan was like this huge juggernaut. Oh, it's the 80s. Sorry, 80s. Yeah, and then look at what happened to them. So 1988. This is their peak of their market. Yeah, they owned Hawaii, Robert. Exactly. So look at in 1988. This is where the Nikkei was. Where is it now? Somewhat 98, 2008. We're almost 30 years into this, and the market is still half of what it was before. So guys, just because the market is doing well does not mean. So guess what? Anybody that invested in the market, Japanese market, and they were kings of the world at that point, has not even gotten back to ground even again 30 years later. But my guy's really good. We've already talked about that, right? Well, Nobel Prize winners that started long-term capital management, what happened to them? And again, anybody that's investing in the market today that does not know the story of long-term capital management should not be touching anybody's money. Anybody's money. Mutual funds, 9% of them lose to the market over time. Money managers, investing, we just talked about this last week or 2 weeks ago, right? Investing in last year's best manager, if I just chose at the end of every year to buy the manager who was the best one last year, you would have averaged a loss of 18.2% a year over the last 20 years. Every year your money would have went backwards 18%, 18%, 18% every year if you just invested in last year's best advisor. I know that is crazy, Tom. So think about how systems change. How long does it take to grow a forest, guys? How long does it take to grow a forest? How long does it take for that forest to burn down? How long does it take to build a building? How long does it take to bring that building down? How long does it take to build a database? How long does it take for that database to crash? How long does it take to build a financial system? How long does it take for that to crash? Think about it. It takes how long, when the market goes up, how long does it take for the market to go up? And then how long does it take for it to, all of those gains to be lost? Days, overnight. And then the banking system, how long did it take for the banking system to be built? And then they did something right in 1933, did the Glass-Steagall Act of 1933, and then what did the bozos in Washington decide to do, which caused the 2008 crash? They got rid of it. So I agree, the odds are in stock's favor if you hold it over time, but should we, is a little bit of the shine off the, well, I forget the analogy that you say, a little bit of the shine is off the stocks when you realize that 27 over the last 50 years, the stocks did not keep you ahead of inflation. And that's really how they're being sold, right? You need to be in stocks to keep you ahead of inflation. You need to be in stocks to keep you ahead of inflation. Risk is everything. Should you risk everything on those odds, though? Like I said, I just did this. Would you double or nothing on $10? Sure. But would you double or nothing on your house? Nobody in their right minds would double or nothing on their house. But, guys, when we're dealing with retirees' monies, this is their house. This is their livelihood. This is their way. This is their way to live from now until they die. We need to take care of people's monies the same way we would. So if we're willing to risk people's livelihood in the market without having at least 50% of the money guaranteed, then we should what? Then we should what? We should be willing to just bet our houses. So how many of you would be willing to bet your houses? Yes, you should treat them as if you're parents. And Jeannie, I'd go one step further. You should treat them as if you're parents, and if you screw up, they're all going to move in with you. How many advisors would be doing it differently? That's right, Tom, stop gambling. How many advisors would be investing their clients' monies differently if they knew if things didn't work out, they'd be moving into their house with them? So they'd get to move in, 150 of their favorite clients would get to move into their house with them. Would advisors be investing their clients' monies differently? I know they would. I know they would. See, it's easy to bet with other people's money. See, I don't plan on crashing when I ride my bike, but I wear a helmet. I don't want my home to burn down, but I buy home insurance. I don't plan on drowning, but I wear a life vest on a boat. I mean, remember what we're doing, and a lot of you have seen this, but I think it's worth showing again. $10 invested in 1928 to 2002, 74 years. Buy and hold would have grown to $10,000 or almost $11,000. That's pretty darn good, right? $10 would have grown to almost $11,000 buy and hold. But if you just missed 30 of the best months, you'd have only grown to 154. That's huge. If you missed the 30 worst months, you would have grown to $1 million. So what's more important, being in for the best months or missing the worst months? What's more important, being in for the best months or missing the worst months? And here, if you've been lucky enough to do both, so you can see here, missing the worst months is by far the most important thing. I'm losing my voice here. So what does an FIA do for us, guys? What does an FIA do for you? It's not going to give you the best months. It's never going to give you the best months. That's right, Tom. It's going to protect you from the downside. And misses the worst months. That's why we put our guaranteed money there. See, William Fleckenstein said, it's not losing money that makes you rich. It's not losing, because everybody can, remember, anybody heard the story of Yoplait? What happened to Yoplait? If you put, I think it was Yoplait, but it was a yogurt company of some sort in the 70s or 80s that went, if you put $10,000 in, you would have been a millionaire like 3 years later, and then guess what happened? 1 year after that, you would have been back to 10,000. So it's not losing money. Dannon, thank you, Michael. Dannon, yogurt. It's not losing money that makes you rich. It's not making money that makes you rich. The lesson here is we can't just be safe. We can't just pursue a high return. If our clients are 90 years old, they should have all their money where? And guaranteed. If they're 3-year-old, they should have all their money in wild and crazy in the market. But our clients are neither 90 years old nor 3 years old, so they need to be, but are they closer to 90 or closer to 3? Are they closer to 90 or closer to 3? So if we're going to make a mistake, we should be what? Making a mistake on the side of the safety or the side on growth? Should be making a mistake towards safety, not growth. So diversification makes sense, and essentially we use both of them, both growth and safety. But what Benjamin Graham says, and he was a teacher, he was a mentor to Warren Buffett, Michael Price, Bill Gates, and Munger. He said that 50-50%, even for not even a retired person, but a regular person, 50-50, would be the perfect for an average investor. That's where I've had my money for the last 15 years, and I consider myself a pretty well versed in investing, and still I have my money 50-50 and have been for the 15 years, about 20 years. A portfolio study by Newberg and Berman found that if you did a 50-50 portfolio, 50% 5-year treasuries, 50% S&P 500, portfolio analyzed over a 38-year time period, 1960 to 1998. Nobody's done this study since then, so I don't have a newer data, but still, 38 years. And remember, this was during what? 1998. That means what? We missed the two biggest stock market crashes since 1972. So So this should be good, right? This should be good. So 82%, if you'd invested 50-50 during the some of the best years in stock market history, you still would have gotten 82% of the S&P 500 return with 60% of the risk. So is that good or not good? If you offered your clients 82% of the return with 59% of the risk, what would they say? They'd say, give it to me all day long. Now, here's the thing. Here's what we're not considering. Do you think FIAs would have beat 5-year treasuries? They would have beat them hand over fist. So then how much of the S&P 500 return would be getting without taking any more of the risk? So you get most of the upside. So do you understand why I love 50-50? If it's good enough for Benjamin Graham, it's quite a bit more. I agree, Tom. If it's good enough for Benjamin Graham, and again, if you don't know who Benjamin Graham is, I sure in the heck hope you aren't managing people's money. And it's good, and then we have this proof here. Guess what? This is why I recommend 50-50, and if not, higher towards the safety for our clients. Because we can do one better. We do 50% market, 50% FIA. So before my voice gives away here, so any questions, concerns? I appreciate you letting me walk through this with you. And again, I hope I haven't offended any of you, but this is stuff that we need to know. And you guys are the good guys. You guys are using our system. Are you promoting the positive or letting people know the whole story and actually promoting the negative so they know what they're getting into? Not just with the 21 where we actually have them learn where they're at right now and learning about the bad things they're in, but when we present our products, do we present the good stuff or do we present the negative of our product so they're completely aware of the downsides of our product before they purchase it? See, you guys are the good guys. You guys are not pulling the wool over people's eyes. You guys are the ones that are out there being forthright, honest, and protecting people's livelihoods, protecting it like it is your own. Yeah, Tom, you present the truth. So I cannot thank all of you so enough for taking the bridle of the 21-point checklist of the 5Q system and running with it, because you are what's good in this industry. You are the future of this industry, because the future of this industry is going to require more and more disclosure, and you're at the vanguard of that. So I greatly, greatly appreciate that and appreciate all of you. And hopefully you found this was a worthwhile conversation, and I'm going to let you guys go early before my voice gives out. So I appreciate all you guys. You guys are what's right about this industry, and I really appreciate it. Thanks, everybody.